whole thing of health and fitness is like a four-legged chair bar stool, however you want to picture it. I thought my job for years was just the physical health, personal training, nutrition, like that's what I did. And I realized like that's one leg of the bar stool. And while I'm not a therapist, for me to be ignorant and saying that I don't think I can help anyone with their mindset was just that. It was ignorant. So, you got your physical health, but you got your mental health, emotional health, and spiritual health. And I believe they all go together. So if everything else is a mess, but you're nailing your plan in fitness, eventually that's going to cave. That makes sense?
Oh, that makes total sense. I mean, I've been in the training business way shorter than you, but I've ran into some people that have some pretty jacked bodies that are just some of the most broken people on the inside. From the outside looking in, you think like that guy has everything. He's got it figured out. If there's something lacking spiritually, maybe he'll be able to keep the results, but inside, that's not true health.
No, dude. So glad you brought that up. I'll be honest, man. I found these pictures back from when I used to compete in bodybuilding. I remember looking at this picture, and I remember when even I took the picture, it was right after cardio. So I was dripping sweat, shredded. I've got some veins running in my abs. I'm jacked. And I remember even thinking at that time, man, you fat piece of shit. You got to pick it up. I was so broken that it was just like, if I just get a little leaner or a little bigger, then I'll be happy. And it was all about winning this competition. To get what? Like a bronze fake trophy that does nothing? And I was jacked and I was more lean and I was so miserable. I became selfish, self-centered, self-seeking. It was all about me. And when you're doing a bodybuilding show, listen, this isn't a team sport. It is you versus everyone else. People are like, oh man, I wish I could look like so-and-so at the gym. And I don't tell these people, hey, I know so-and-so and he's a broken guy. Yeah, he looks great, but he's miserable. I don't tell them that because it's none of my business to share their information, but that happens so often. And that's all they care about. And it's gotten them to a deep, dark place. And I think that's important to talk about,
Yeah, it's almost like what you externally look like is just a really poor indicator of what's going on inside. Because granted, there are tons of people out there that look great, that are the happiest people in the world. Because along the way, if you're going to change physically, you got to be okay with changing mentally as well. Otherwise, you're like living in this weird shell of a body that doesn't quite align with who the person inside of it still thinks they are. I've thought about doing a show and like, I'm just a fitness trainer. The concept of doing one, it kind of scares me because I'm afraid of the mindset of caring about aesthetics. I've always had more performance-based goals. As a trainer, is doing a show something that you would recommend that trainers experience?
It's a great question. So I had somebody reach out and say, hey, I know you hate show preps, but, and then she asked me a question on Instagram and I said, oh, I'm sorry. Like, I need to clarify. I don't hate them. In fact, the first bodybuilding prep I went through was still to date one of the cooler experiences I've done. Now, for me, what that was about was I was jacked as a 17-year-old kid. That's when I really got into health and fitness. And listen, like I had the body to compete at probably an 18, 19-year-old. And I kept saying I was going to, but I had this thing called the drug problem where I'm like, one day. And it was like, one day's never going to come. I remember some guy going, dude, stop talking about that, man. Until you can get clean, you're never going to do shit. And he was right. So November 20th of 2012, I finally got sober after a decade-long addiction. And I remember when I got sober, I was like, it'd be really cool to finally compete. But I told myself I need to get 1 year of sobriety, focus on my recovery, focus on my spiritual, mental, and emotional health. And I was still working out. I said, give myself a year. And if at a year, I feel like I'm in a good place emotionally, mentally to do this, and spiritually, I'm going to do it. And so a year came and I did it. And at 18 months, I competed in my first show. And that prep was amazing. It was this almost spiritual experience of pushing myself. And I didn't care if I was going to win. I just was like, I just want to do this finally to prove to myself I can do really hard things. And I stayed really spiritually grounded. It was an awesome experience because it was like this bucket list thing that I finally proved to myself I could do. That faith in myself came from the fact that I didn't really think I could get sober because I'd tried like 30 times before and I finally did it. So I was like, I think I can do hard shit. So it was amazing, but it was all about my mentality around it was completely different. It was not about getting up there and winning. There was no ego involved. Sure, I was caring about my aesthetics, but I was more just like, wow, I'm really getting lean. Look at this. This is crazy. Like embracing it. Funny thing happened though, Chase, is when I went there, I won my class and it was a big show. And I was like the new guy and I won. And I remember people coming up to me like, man, you got a real future in this sport. I was like, I want to do another one. And that one was all about the ego because I had experienced doing well and people told me, oh my gosh, you should do another one. I think you can win the overall. I think you'll compete nationally. And that next prep was awful. I I got so self-centered on everything about me. I ruined a whole relationship. I remember I came home, I was 2 weeks out from my prep. She moved out. I was so awful to be around. And let me tell you, man, you stop doing any mental, spiritual, and emotional work, and you put chemicals in your body that make you pretty amped up. I was just not a pleasant person. And whether that's a girl trying to get super lean for a show and almost develop some anorexia, or like excessive amounts of exercise, like this overtraining disorder, or guys doing steroids, if you have to go to measures that you can't justify are healthy to get to a certain result, it's not going to be a good experience, right? To answer your question, if you go in with the right mentality, I think it's so fun. You just go in, it's a great challenge. You embrace the suck. And so I think it's all about how you go into a show. So I don't hate competing. I feel bad for people that get addicted to competing because that's the only time they feel like they can stay in shape, because they've never truly learned how to live their life.
And it's so much about why you're doing it. And I love that you brought it back around to the chair, because you had to make sure you had your spiritual, mental, and emotional health in check before you pursued this crazy physical feat.